Hi there, I'm Barb Owen of HowToGetCreative.com, and today we're going to talk about what are Dixsress Oxide Inks. Now, these are a pretty new product. They just came out in January of 2017. At that point, there were 12 colors released by Ranger and Tim Holtz. And currently, as of this is the summer of 2017, there are 12 additional colors that have been released. So there's a total of 24 colors at the time that I'm doing this recording. I have the first 12 colors. I've been playing around with them a little bit, and they're pretty fun. I have to say, I really like them. I'm just going to get right to it and just show them to you. We'll just talk about them as we go. How's that? We'll just talk as we go. So here are the two different inks. This is the regular Dixsress ink right here. It says Dixsress ink. This clearly says Dixsress Oxide. You'll notice that they're in different color packaging. So the Dixsress inks are in a black packaging. The Dixsress Oxide are in a gray packaging. Why is that important? Because you really don't want to confuse the two inks as far as like your applicator sponges that you use. You do not want to intermix those at all. They must be kept separately because the Dixsress ink is a dye-based ink. The Dixsress Oxide is a fusion of the dye and pigment. It's a very interesting formulation of those two kinds of inks fused together into one hybrid sort of magic formula. I don't know what else to call it. Anyway, it's fun. That's what it is. So what I have here are, I've taken the colors, the same colors that I have in Dixsress ink and in the oxides, and I've done the same treatment to both sets of tags here. So we're going to talk about that. And then I'll show you, we'll do one little experiment here. So what I have here is I took white cardstock. Okay, so I have white cardstock. I took Manila cardstock. I took craft cardstock. And then there's only one piece of black because the Dixsress inks are so translucent they will not show on the black at all. So there's no black because they don't show up. So let's talk about these just a little bit. So the colors that I used here, and I'm just going to move these out of the way. We'll do them one at a time. The colors I used, and I write all this stuff on the back of the tag, and these are, believe me, these are tags I cut out. These are nothing fancy. This is like cardstock that came from the craft store type of cardstock. So what I used were worn lipstick, fossilized amber, and faded jeans. And then the edging is done with walnut stain. So it's the same thing on both of these. And it's done with what Tim calls his wrinkle-free distress technique. So what you can see between these two is the colors are clearer here. They have a more milky look, and that comes from the oxide inks. Other than that, the colors work together really well. You can see a little bit of difference, especially when you get it, when you're looking at it yourself in real life. I noticed quite a bit of difference between the walnut stain in the Dixsress ink and in the oxide ink. It has a much grayer look, which you would expect for this type of formulation, but it's really pretty. So that's done on white. All right, so let's take a look at it on the Manila cardstock. I was surprised at how similar the Manila cardstock was to the white. So let me here, let's do this. So this is the white on the outside. So this is the white on the outside, and this is the Manila on the inside. So they're very, very similar in color. I was very surprised at that. This is a little yellower, but not very much. So very, very similar in color. Okay, then on the craft colored cardstock, again, the same colors of ink. So the ink colors are worn lipstick, fossilized amber, and faded jeans. So that's what you have on the craft colored cardstock. A big difference between these two. Big difference. I like them both, but what a huge difference between the results. And then on black, this is the black, the oxide inks in those same colors used on black. You don't get as much variation of color, at least I didn't get as much variation of color. I can see it, this on camera looks, you know, pretty much just all similar in color tone between the three inks. As I look at it in real life, I see more of a difference in the colors. But I do like the way it shows up on the black cardstock. I think that's really interesting. Really interesting. I have to say, so far, my favorite of all of these is this one, the craft color. I think that turned out so pretty. So pretty. Okay, so 2 more sets of colors here. We're going to just start with the white. And these colors are Cracked Pistachio, Peeled Paint, and Iced Spruce. And again, I edged them with the Walnut Stain. So this is the Distress ink, and this is the Distress Oxides. I mean, just really beautiful. Both of them are really beautiful. So this is on white cardstock. This is done on the Manila Cardstock. So Manila Cardstock, so I'm going to put those to the side, so there's a good look at them. Then I'm just going to set those to the side so you can compare the Manila and the white. So this is the Manila. So you can see the green is actually brighter on the Manila cardstock than on the white in this instance. So this is the white cardstock, that's the Manila. This is the craft colored cardstock, same colors of inks, and the ink colors again are Cracked Pistachio, Peeled Paint, and Iced Spruce. This is the Distress ink on the left, and these are the Distress Oxides on the right. Now you're not seeing as much of the definition of the colors as I'm seeing here. In real life, I'm getting more definition on this one. It looks pretty faded out here on the camera, but you do get to see some pretty colorations. So what I'm discovering as I've been playing with these is, you know, it really depends on your choice of colors of ink as to how, on these darker surfaces, how well they're going to show up. That's been my my experience, which, I mean, that's kind of like a duh moment, but, you know, yeah, that's my unscientific professional opinion. And this is on the black. And again, in real life, this is a little brighter and more intense in the color variation. I think this looks really neat. Even on camera, I think that looks neat on the black. All right, and one final group that I had. Now, this is a little bit unfair because I didn't have the same blue ink. In the Distress ink, I had Tumbled Glass, and in the Oxide ink, I had Broken China. So didn't have the exact same thing, but I decided to go ahead and do it anyway, just because they were similar blues, but not exactly the same. So on this side, I have, this is Distress ink on white cardstock. This is Tumbled Glass, Fired Brick, and Vintage Photo. And it's edged with Walnut Stain. On this side, it is Broken China, Fired Brick, and Vintage Photo, edged with Walnut Stain. So the blue is more intense over here because it's a darker blue to start with. So that's on white cardstock. This is Manila cardstock. Distress ink, Distress Oxides. And again, let me put the white beside the Manila just so you can see. So this is white, this is white, these are Manila, just so you can see how they look. So just so you know, I'm telling you the truth. There's the Manila and there's the white. And you'll see that I've written on the back of every single one of these what I did so that I can remember exactly what I did. And then on the craft cardstock, same colors. So this is Tumbled Glass, Fired Brick, Vintage Photo, Broken China, Fired Brick, Vintage Photo on the craft colored cardstock. This is a really grungy, neat look. This is has a much more pastel, interesting look. They're just different. And then on the black cardstock, that's how it looks. Looks like a galaxy. I think that's really cool on the black. Okay, so I think, and this, I have one more to show you. This was a piece of white that I cut into tag shape. And this was just whatever was left on the mat. I was just picking it up as I was working. And so this is a combination of both Distress inks and the oxide inks, just kind of layering on top of each other. So I thought that was kind of interesting too. All right, we're going to do one quick tag so I can just show you. And this is the white cardstock. And I'm going to show you how I did this. I'm going to only do it with the oxides. So I have worn lipstick, broken china, and wilted violet. So those are the inks that I'm going to use. This is a Ranger craft sheet that I have on a board, and it's all nasty looking, I know, but it's what I use for all this stuff. So I'm just putting some of the worn lipstick, some of the wilted violet, and some of the broken china on my sheet. And so I'm leaving those real handy in case I want to use more of them. So I'm going to squirt them with water. And then I'm going to just take my tag, okay, and then just kind of wiggle it around in the inks. So you get this really pretty background to start with. And then I'm just going to move this off a little bit and use my heat gun to dry this. This is one of the things that you need to do when you're working with distressed products, and that is to dry between the layers. So just dry. And you want to get it fairly dry. It doesn't have to be super duper dry, but you want it fairly dry. And as the cardstock starts to curl up, then you can I just flip it over onto the other side and continue drying it. It's pretty wet at the moment. And if I get any puddles, I just soak them up. So it's, it's fairly dry. It's not super duper dry, but it's fairly dry. We'll give it one more little shot of heat. And because this is just inexpensive cardstock, it doesn't flatten out quite as nicely as some of your tags, that are actually cut out as tags. It's a different kind of cardstock. Okay, so then I'm going to come back to my inks. And then what I did with all those samples is, as long as it was good and wet, I didn't do anything other than just tap some of the ink, tap it into some of the different places. So I've got some extra goodness going on, so then I'm going to hit it with the heat gun again. So this is exactly the process I did with both the Distress inks and the Distress oxides. And then if I see puddles of ink, then I just tap it with the paper towel to soak up most of that, like so. And my favorite thing, if this starts getting dry, is to just hit it with a little bit more water. I like the little bitty broken up droplets. That's my favorite thing. So let's see if we can get some more of those. Okay, and then you don't want to go too far before you dry again. So then I've just set it aside and dry it again. And then you can repeat this process as many times as you want to get the layers. With the Dixsress Oxides, you can just keep layering them. Now, there will come a point where you've gone too far. And so then that's where you learn and you go, oh, should have stopped one layer before this. And then I'm going to spritz it with a little bit more water. And let's go again, see what we get. We'll see if we can stop before it's too much. Okay. Okay, so we're going to stop and dry again. And if you have puddles, I just soak them up. Because sometimes you get, just a little too much. It's a little too muchness. And then I'm not going to put any more of those colors on here, but I just had an extra tag available. It could be an extra piece of cardstock or whatever. And then I just soaked up whatever was left, just like that. And then I just set that off to let it air dry. And then I just kept building layers on top of that. And that's how I got that interesting, it's a whodunit tag. That's how I got that. Just, weird colors, leftover inks, whatever happens, that's how I ended up getting that. So it just started out with just picking up whatever was on the mat. So you can get some really fun and interesting color combinations with the leftovers too. Then one of the things that is unique about this pigment ink is that it will react with water. So you can take that, get some drops of water, and kind of splat it on the surface. Give it a little heat. Let it start to kind of do its thing. And then just pick up the excess. And so you end up with this very cool water droplet appearance. Just even more distress. But isn't that interesting? And so that is exactly what I did on every one of those samples. Every one of them was done exactly the same way. So let me get rid of this horrible looking mat so you can see against a different color what it looks like. So those three colors were Worn Lipstick, Wilted Violet, and Broken China. Then to edge them, what I used was a blending tool, Walnut Stain, and this is in the Oxide Ink. And what I do on these is I just take the hook side of Velcro and I glue it, just a little piece of it, glue it with Crafter's Pick. It's a really good glue to glue this down. This piece is really too big. I only need about half of that. And then that way, when I'm done with my blending foam, I can just stick it right on the top of my container. And I do that for whatever my container is. That works for me. That doesn't work for everybody. It works for me. So that's what I do. And then I'm going to just come back to this mat because I like the way it works with this. And then I just pick up some of the ink and then just edge it. around the edges. And of course you can take your blending to whatever degree you want, as far as you want to go with different colors and so forth. But that's all that I did for all of these examples. And I was doing that specifically so that I could have a comparison between the exact same colors, from the edging to everything. So when I get these same colors in the regular inks, you know, like the wilted violet and broken china, when I get those in the regular distress inks, I'll make a tag that matches this one, and I'll write the information on the back. Then to keep track of those, you have different options for, because I really like this tag format for these samples. It's big enough that you can actually see, you know, you can actually get a really good sample of whatever the technique is. So I like having them on a tag personally. Then you can do things like you can group them together. This was actually from one of Tim Holtz's, one of his classes called Creative Chemistry. And so I grouped them by the days and, you know, tied them together and labeled them, but it has all the instruction on the back. So I did that to keep like things together. And then I put them in just a little box that I found that was exactly the right size for the tags. So you can see how they fit in this little plastic box just perfectly. So that's one thing. And besides that, they're pretty. But that's one way that I have of controlling my samples so that I know exactly where they are. I can get a hold of them, pull them out, and refresh my memory. Another way you can control your samples is, this was an idea from the latest issue of Somerset Studio Magazine, The Art of Paper and Mixed Media, and that was to make a book using the tags, and that's probably what I'm going to do for this one. So if you have a binding machine, you can just bind it with some of the coils and put them together that way. So once I have completed all the samples that I intend to have, because even right now I have quite a few. See, I have quite a few. And so when I have as many of these tags as I wish to have for my different samples, then that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bind them together, and then all the information will be on the back of every tag. So I know what it is I used, what the technique was. This was wrinkle-free distress technique. What the inks are, what I did, what the color cardstock was to start with. Because sometimes, as you saw, it was a little hard to tell the difference between the white and the Manila cardstock. And then just bind them into a little book. So that way they're easy to flip through and find the samples and so forth. So how about that? Yeah, that's pretty cool, isn't it? Look how pretty those are. Oh, yeah, look how pretty. Fan those out and just take a look. That is some serious eye candy right there, don't you think? Yeah, that's some good eye candy. So I have to say that I'm really enjoying the Dixsress Oxides and the Distress Inks. I like both. They are both water reactive. Neither one is permanent. You'll have to do things to make them permanent, and there are some things you can do to make them permanent after the fact, but in its original formulation, neither one is permanent. They're always water reactive, which there's something really interesting about that concept of having something that's always going to be reactive. Kind of speaks to the wabi-sabi thing, you know, the impermanence of everything always changing and all that. It's kind of an interesting concept. I don't know if that's what, you know, entered anybody's mind when they were creating these. I have no idea, but that's kind of what I think about when I think of the whole concept of inks that don't dry permanently, and that's kind of an interesting way to work. So anyway, I like them. I think they're really fun to play with. Yeah, so that's my experiment with what are oxide inks. So remember to get creative today, because you know it's easy. Come on over to How to Get Creative and check us out. Would love to have you visit over there. I'm Barb Owen, HowToGetCreative.com. See you next time.